Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Revenue Hacks in association with WHTT. You all know me by now. It's Khristina Ridge, and you know our fabulous hosts. We are taking a turn and switching it up this week, and we're going to focus on a few new things going forward, which we're very, very excited about doing. But before that, let's go around the table. Let's have a quick hello from everybody and where they are this week. I'm still sitting in Ireland. It is still raining, I'd like to point out. So, Olga, where are you?
Thank you very much. I'm in London. I'm actually located in Noble Portman Square Hotel, the hotel that is planned to open in November. I'm a revenue specialist, I suppose, and also St. Julian's Scholar committee member and train in revenue management.
Oh, hi.
Yes, I was about to say Susanne.
Sorry, I'm Susanne. I'm in Cheltenham. It's also just started raining. I'm the Revenue and Performance Director here at Journey Travel. I oversee the performance of all our marketing programmes and make sure all the KPIs and numbers work.
And B.
And I'm B. So I'm the founder of My.O.C. It's a revenue and commercial consulting company helping hotels to optimize their revenue, setting up the right strategies, etc.
I love how you always say etc. It's one of those things.
Whatever emphasis required.
So as I said, this week we're switching it up. We're actually going to start focusing on a lot of actions that you can do, and it's not back to basics as per se, but we're expanding on that back to basics episodes that we've done. So if you haven't seen them before, feel free to catch up, and then we'll put up the link in a few minutes so that you can actually kind of watch back. And we're going to actually over the next few weeks speak about strategy. What is a strategy? What is a commercial strategy? A revenue strategy? What makes a great strategy? How to build one? We're going to show you some examples. We're going to show you some, share some our insights and also the reports that we actually use as well. And obviously, as you guys know, we're more than happy to take questions. So we have a very big question for you, Olga.
Well, the big question we today have is how the revenue structure should look like, or what are the key parts that should be in the revenue structure or strategy, sorry.
And we want to know, do you have a revenue strategy in place at the moment? Do you have a COVID revenue strategy in place? Or are you still following the one prior to the pandemic? And if not, are you building one at the moment? And what are your building blocks for building a strategy? How do they differ from what we think? And obviously, this is what's really cool about revenue, is that everyone's opinion is always mattered and your input can differ greatly to what we have. So please feel free to pop us a message in the chat box. And if you've got any questions for anyone of the hosts over the time, please feel free to do that too. Also, remember, you can follow us on all social media channels. We're there. We're live every day. You'll see random posts from each one of us. And also don't forget to actually fill out the WHTT Focusrite survey, which also has been appearing in a lot of emails, chat boxes and everything over the last few weeks, because your opinions matter to us at WHTT and at Revenue Hacks. So let's kick it off. Let's get into this. It's something I've been kind of really looking forward to over the last few weeks, knowing that we're going to be deep diving into all these bits and pieces as we went by. And I think the 4 things that you need to keep in mind and monitor, obviously, before you create a strategy is, setting the right goals. KPIs are so important. It's not a case that you rip these out of the air, which we've touched on before in our Back to Basics episodes. You need to have the right goal, which Olga so rightly said. You need to communicate with your owners and actually find out what is their expectation when it comes to actually setting strategies, budgets, and having that goal. Removing any silos. We've spoken about this loads of times. If Benedict is here, Benedict, hi, how are you? We're still stopping silos. You need to make sure every place has an input, every F&B outlet, every spa outlet, everyone has an input in your business. And also you need to get an agreement in regards to consistent investment, whether it's technology or maintenance or even a refurb in your property, and also then how you can drive profitability. I feel like I've already spoken a lot. So Susanne, over to you. What is your opinion on what is the perfect accommodation strategy?
Okay, so I break it down into some headlines, and I'll probably kick off just talking about the product. That top line of product offer, I tend to look at various areas. Room segmentation, which we're all very familiar with, keeping it simple, your leisure and commercial segments, and then breaking it down accordingly. Forecast, measure, and work on your growing segments. So I summarize so that I can go back and deep dive into each of the various different areas to pull all the actions and plans behind it. So the second thing for me under product offer is room hotel differentiation. What makes your product and proposition stand out, especially if you're an independent property? If you're commanding high rates, what's the perceived value? How are you going to drive the exceptional service? And how are you going to bring the repeat guests and that whole brand stickiness? How do you then assess the potential to enhance your rooms and add value, and what is really valued by the customer? So a bit marketing-y, but I think it's an opportunity for revenue managers to use their influence and bring people into that conversation. If your hotel does not have an overarching accommodation plan, as a revenue manager, you can start that chat. So clearly defining your different services and the facilities. The other things that sit for me under product are your guest review sites, massively important and have such an impact on price. Improvements and upgrades. So realistically, when it comes to, you've defined and analysed your offer, but what could you do that's going to enhance that rate? If you improved a concierge service or a late check-in or a late check-out, what can you bring to the party? And just note it down. So that's always in one of my headlines, number 4, general improvements and upgrades. Packages and value, how you bring in various different offers for different types of guests. Keep it simple. You don't have to have lots of complexity, whether it be, get the 4th night free, etc., in-house spa treatments, entrances to museums. These are just, for me, the top headlines. So that's the first one for me on product.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
I literally, I didn't even hear say 1 and 2. I just heard product number 3. This was like, oh my God. B, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think there's different ways to approach the accommodation strategy. Accommodation or hotel strategy, in reality, it's not just accommodation. You need to bring this total revenue thingy in there. I guess this is the right time to really think about it. Like, lots of hotels are starting budgets and talking to different companies. You can feel like, oh, it's going the same way as last year and it's going to be stressful again, and top management is not listening and we don't have the top numbers, and we always do build something and then we get some bounce back, etc. So, or you hear like, oh, the sales team has already done their budget, and like, how come? Like, you cannot do different budgets. This has to be done together. So yeah, what we need to do is really take a step back and looking at how we can help you and revenue managers in general, or sales or commercial teams to be more influential. Like, how can you really up the game and make sure that you have all the right information and you can really share the right information, look at the overall picture, not only from your own point of view, but from the others also. So whether it's the product, understanding your product clearly, understanding your pricing. So those are the 2 key elements, really. And then based on that, right, this is what I have, this is where I can go. How can I improve, and what are the tools that I need, or that I need to analyze, things that I need to analyze in order to get there, and distribute the right message to improve my revenue. I think that's still like where we are lacking sometimes confidence, or the tools, or I don't know, tips and tricks basically on how to remove this frustration that a lot of revenue people have at this time, because you're just like, oh, it's not working. But as Susanne was saying, like, yeah, the silo things is key. And so we just want to, I think the next sessions that we're going to do with revenue hacks are going to help to define those things for the people.
And Olga, I have a question for you, because obviously you've moved into a new position, so congratulations. We're all delighted for you.
Thank you.
You are taking over from someone else who's put a revenue strategy in place for that particular property for quite some time. How are you now adapting to their strategy to suit what you believe are the business needs? What are you looking at?
It's almost like doing a handover in a very short period of time and trying to understand someone's strategy. And also I should say that, okay, the person who covered the function, let's say for some time, mainly focused on technical abilities, making sure that all connected, the systems and so on and so forth. So that is actually a really big part of the job, and it takes a long period of time. In terms of the strategy, a lot of things have been left actually until the last minute. Things have been set in place, but there are still some key decisions to be made. I think it's understanding what is the pricing for the retail market. That is a key. And it's almost like doing an audit, to just trying to see who we work with, how we're just going to distribute, what is the pricing strategy, what has been taken into account. It's really trying to find information and see whether it's right or not. On some things need to be adjusted, and then diving into it a little bit deeper. What is the pricing strategy or strategy for each of the market segments? So, a lot of, I think Susanne really very rightly covered. There are a lot of different things, and that goes into the right strategy. But I also like the word overarching. So, and not just accommodation, but echoing what Bea said about understanding the bigger picture and what is also the goals of stakeholders and where that property sits within the company. What is the strategy? What are the goals for the next 3-5 years time, to understand really what we need to get? And that is coming to setting up those goals at the beginning. That is kind of where I see it. I'm trying right now building that picture in terms of what is the structure, strategy, and kind of maybe slightly making changes, because obviously a lot of things have changed in the last 5 months, and we're moving. Next year is expected to be. Thank you very much, Evelyn. We are moving into 2021, and yesterday I read the report from Esther Forward for London, and that was quite an interesting read. For London, I think there is a lot of things to be set in place and to be done for next year. So that is quite an interesting period of time for many revenue directors.
I know, and that's the crazy thing as well. A lot of people now are building strategies based on the fact that, they're expecting recovery. Some strategies are recovery strategies, other strategies aren't recovery, and they're just focusing primarily on domestic. And for me, I think there's a big thing that we need to it's a bone of contention that we all need to speak about. It's technology. Does your technology support this? And ways that you can manipulate your technology if it doesn't actually give you all the accurate data that you need. Susanne, being a key tech person when it comes to actually dealing with technology, you're a huge advocate for technology and integration. What are your thoughts on people who have, or hotels who have legacy systems? What can they do to actually extract that data and be able to use it to build their plans, basically?
I think it comes back to that, having the overarching plan. So that's why I always start with your segmentation and your systems, making sure that your market segmentation and your coding across your PMS is all set up and accurate. I think there's a good starting point. If you've got a legacy system, we know that data integrity is better coming out of a legacy system, but by and large, it always pays to just go back and review your configuration across your reservations, your profile types, your company agent and source data, and really give that a whole database clean and recode the bookings going forward, because there will be emerging market segments coming through that you may not necessarily be tracking accurately at the moment in your PMS. You want to make sure that you can see any changes to the guest behaviours and the price points now, so that your pricing strategy is always going to take that into consideration over the next 3 to 6 months, especially when we hit January, February and March. So I think it's keeping on top of it right now is quite important, and making sure that you're identifying those emerging markets as they come through.
Bea, do you have any recommendations to people at the moment as well who are finding it hard to segment everything and dissect the data? What would you recommend people do, in particular if you're coming into a property or you're taking over a property from a consultancy base? What would you kind of look at, and how would you go around putting band-aids on everything, basically?
Magic. No, what I think cleaning the data is the base, because you can look at as many things as you want, but if the data is crap, sorry for the word, well, there's nothing you can do with it, basically. So that's really, really, really key. And then look at the most detailed level that you have into your data. Make work your Excel and just have a look at how like what are the different bulk of type of business that you have. So I think like there's the traditional segmentation, and that's great, but then we need to think a little bit differently. So as you were just saying, people are looking for domestic business. Cool, that's the short-term goal, because it will change. International business is going to come back at some point, so we also need to be prepared for that. So don't segment just by countries, for example, or just my domestic. Like, you need to have your plan for the long term, and it can be. I mean, for me, a segmentation based on distribution is really key now. This is like the most important thing. So depending on how your hotel and your structure is done, there's always a way to like switch it a little bit more into a distribution segmentation, and that's where I guess in the next 1-2 years, when business is going to come back, that's going to be the most profitable way to look at data, I think.
If I may, I kind of ask a question, maybe in regards to market segmentation, because how historically hotels would be tracking, let's say, wholesalers or consortia under one, regardless of what goes into that bucket. But they could be in wholesalers, they could be static, dynamic rates, and right now in many properties, I'm still seeing it's all kind of merged into one. So you get really mixed information. Wouldn't make sense, or maybe right now it would make sense to create additional submarkets or segregate it even further. And as long as it sits very clearly in the budget and forecast, so you can clearly see, so you don't have to pull additional reports, because you can still all do that, even search by market codes, etc. But it's very a long way to get to the information. I think potentially revenue directors need to create additional markets so that information is clear, and the consortia have different ways of, discounted, not discounted, etc., or benefits. I personally want to see this information quite clear and easy to access, and that would be sitting in different buckets. And I think because of the COVID-19, there is right now the question: how many travel agencies will survive? What they move, how their business will change, and that will affect the hotels and the profit line, of course. So being able to track it right now, that would give information for the future to make the right decisions.
Yeah, I agree, Olga.
I agree.
It's really important. Some people are really advocate to get something like systems super clean with like as little number of rate plans or market segment than they want, etc. It's been kind of a trend at some point. We don't want that many; it's too much. But in reality, why? Because the more detailed level you get, the easier it's going to be for you to read your data. And then you can always aggregate stuff together, put them into buckets or sub-segments, etc. That doesn't really matter. End of the day, you can have your transient corporate, like contracted and groups, and that's it. That's fine. But at least you'll know the details, the detail level. But it needs to be done in a smart way. Like I was last time looking at a company, they have their groups segments, for example, that are made in a way that was like clearly they had made some segments based on their sales managers. So there was a segment for entertainment and another one for government and another. I was like, why is that? Like, is it needed? So it's good to go into details, but then we need to recognize, okay, what are we using it for? And I think that's the key thing.
Do you know, honestly, spot on. Really, I totally agree. And the fact of the matter is, if you have got a top level team that are innovative and considering what's actually going on out there.
She's frozen.
Right, sorry. I'm just thinking about, it's good to identify emerging market segments as they come through, but also if you've got a really cohesive, innovative, energetic team that are looking at what's going on out in the marketplace, you can say, I'm going to start to attract that market segment with sales, with marketing, with digital campaigns, pulling it together and then watch it grow by measuring it. You can say, right, transient leisure, I'm going to break it down, go for it, really look at your sales conversion, who are the audience coming through, what's their drive time, what they're going to be attracted to, what's the added value. And then when you're establishing that as your kind of holy grail for the next 3 months when January comes, then it's really easy to measure. I just like to see revenue people lead, you know, and rather than just react to what's going on in the marketplace, identify what's coming, track it, get your marketing behind it, get that whole machine moving, and it works. You know, these simple tactics work.
I think it's so funny that, you know, Olga touched in regards to actually breaking everything down into a clearer picture, and so did B, because this week I was looking at month-end reports for a property for somebody, and I remember looking going, oh my God, we could make this easier for you, because what you have as segments doesn't really tell the proper story into your revenue. You may have smashed it and you may have done it exceptionally well, but you know, you can't see where all that business is coming from. And you need to be able to adapt that information and be able to see it rather than constantly pull reports, because if you're constantly pulling reports all the time and then you're trying to manipulate the data, some things can get missed. That's kind of the nature of being human. We create errors. And I do think it's constantly looking at it and being able to do it. I think it's very clear that we need to outline as well that on revenue hacks, we're always looking at not just revenue as accommodation, but we also look at total revenue. We like the fact that we're involved in total revenue because you do need to look at everything on a commercial side now. We did speak about this a few weeks ago. And then we had Tom Finn on our episodes where we kind of discussed the future of a revenue manager, how that almost goes into a more of a commercial strategist rather than actually being a accommodation revenue manager who just sits there with their blinkered silos on. And I think it's very important that, as Susanne and everyone on the call so far has actually outlined what a commercial strategy should be. We need to stop the silos and align everyone in there. So everyone needs to be locked in that room all together, because it can't be down to one person to make these decisions. And it shouldn't be down to one person to make these decisions, because unfortunately you'll have people who will say, I wasn't part of this, I'm not taking on the ownership of this. We've seen this through the years so many times. And I love the way Tom Finn has just popped a message in saying effective communication, creativity and strong commercial lead is just important right now, which is something that we're all very, very much so focused on. In regards to strategy over the next few weeks, we are going to be touching on a few different topics. Pricing grids, demand. We'll also have a few cool guest speakers. Every third week of the month, we'll have a guest speaker, which we're very much looking forward to. I'm not going to announce the person yet, but we're all super excited about this when we found out today. And also, we're going to be getting some of the audience to pop in as well, like we've done with the Q&A recently, which actually worked very, very well, because your comments, your thoughts, your questions actually matter to us. That's why we're here. We're here to help. In regards to setting a commercial strategy in stone, where would you begin, Olga?
I would look at the property kind of bigger picture. What are the assets? What are the opportunities? And I would look at the total revenue management, so across all departments. And I would take from there, then I would break it down to market segmentation and how we're going to reach those segments or those markets. And then what will the pricing kind of behind it and underneath it, including all the terms and conditions, events, and so on and so forth. And then what will be the marketing behind it to get it to the market at the right time, at the right price as usual. So that's where I would start from that point. And then, you know, as Susanne, it can go quite detailed.
I know. And you know, Susanne, where would your team actually start with building a commercial strategy? Because every commercial strategy differs, so it's not one thing fits all.
Yeah, so we've actually been looking at this quite closely because we're expanding out what we do here at Journey to make sure that all the marketing programs that we offer are actually commercially led. But I think it's important to note that there's a joined up process, and brand has got to come into that picture. So if you've got a new opening, you're going to lay out brands, you're going to look at your audience types, your demographic, the avatar, the tone of voice, all the things that are about what you're prepared to offer. And it's a little bit more overarching than just the accommodation plan. It's what you expect it to be. Then if you're not an opening, then I always start with the numbers. We have a full commercial audit on every single segment, all your distribution channels, your systems, your revenue structure, your pricing grids. We go into all the detail and look at all the cross-referencing. So where are the opportunities? What can we use to grow? Is there a group business that we can identify that if you put a really good strong marketing campaign behind, you can attract more of that? We look at drive time, demographic. We go right into the detail and then lay out all the commercials and how that should actually pull together, and then wrap it round with, okay, well, here's your brand marketing campaign that sits alongside it, and here's our recommendations for sales. So it's all good having top line brands, commercial. The commercial then circles round and then proves that the brand strategy works. But what's happening at hotel level from sales, we would always give some guidance on, because if you're not answering the phone, if you're not responding to guests, if you don't know what your conversion levels are across all those different segments, especially for events and exhibition business, it's pointless. You need to have the full picture. So commercial, brand, commercial, ops, sales.
I have a question for B, because I actually was reading a very interesting article on this over the last few days, because obviously my brain is into hotels. I did see that when one article was recommending that you actually hire in a freelance consultant or a freelance revenue manager that can help you with your optimization, especially when building a commercial strategy. Is that something that you would definitely recommend for people to actually invest the money into actually bringing someone in for a holistic look, rather than just being sitting down? So, if you went into a property, you observe every function that kind of operates there, and you'd be able to kind of get down to the nitty gritty to find what works and what doesn't work for the property compared to what they do.
Yeah. So I'm preaching for myself here, but yes.
That's why it's actually why I asked, because you work as a consultant. So it was interesting to see what your thoughts are on this, because now more than ever, I personally would always say to people to get a consultant in. So I would be really interested in hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, so I've been director of revenue myself for different groups, and you would have told me that like a few years ago, I would be like, why would I need a consultant to help me with my strategy, basically? The reality is sometimes I think when we are in the hotels, we're struggling to take a step back and look at the overall picture and people's agendas around us and the different people we're working with, basically. So as a consultant, when I'm brought into a company to help them with their commercial strategy, very often is looking at the different areas of the hotel. So it's not only revenue, because when you do your revenue strategy, you need to understand like everything around it. So it would be understand the process and how it's working with the people, understand the systems that they have, understand the data, and based on that, giving a clear picture of where you are right now, what are the elements where there are some opportunities, and you'll always have some stuff that you see as a consultant that they would have not seen, or that they'll be like, oh yeah, but no, actually it doesn't work because of XYZ, the type of business that we have, whatever. Like then it's fine. There's not one strategy that fits all, basically. So, but what I've seen working with some clients is that it's usually a good eye opener, because you get to you get to pause, basically, and look at what you have. And as Gabby was just saying, the strategy is not set in stone. We're always optimizing and testing. True. And I guess having someone to push you to test sometimes is actually pretty good to see something differently. And then what you need to do is it's helping you also to set up your goals, because once you've agreed with the commercial team or whoever is doing commercial in your properties, or the GMs, etc., you need to set up the goals to make sure that then the team is all together working on it. And you always need to remember also, you cannot do everything. So I really think that each team needs to have maybe a set of 3 big goals for next year, and they need to stick to it. Of course, there's always some more that we could do, but if you want to do things properly, you need to stick to specific targets and then go back to it. It's not like, we're doing the strategy in August for next year and we're not coming back there. It's like every month you need to join together, see where we are. Has the market changed? Do we need to change the strategy? Because potentially that's what we need also to do. And how do we congratulate ourselves also sometimes? Like, look, the goal was to, I don't know, drop OTA contribution by 3 points, right? That's clear. everybody knows that. Then you can ask anybody in the team, what are the goals for 2021? This is that, and that. And everybody's going to work towards it. So I think that's very often, and quite rightly, because they don't have time to think about it, but that's what's missing in properties. And I guess that's what we all discussed in the last few weeks and yesterday again when we were preparing this, and say, look, we're talking about strategy, but actually, like, how do we plan it? And that's really, I hope, and well, I'm sure that's what we need to discuss the next few weeks, is like giving the few tips on very specific points, go into more details. That's great, exciting.
I love how you outlined, bringing back direct bookings and minimizing down OTAs, because I think sometimes when people create a strategy, they don't really look at items like that. Whereas I think when you're a revenue manager, your core focus is literally sitting there looking at rate management, constantly looking at trying to optimize corporates, either through direct booking or through utilizing OTAs, and trying to do group segments, either increase your group segments like people would be trying to do at the moment, or decrease it completely and taking it out, taking drastic decisions like that. And I like how you just gave some food for thought for people going into 2021 in particular, to actually take their head out of looking at the numbers and actually create almost tangible KPIs that people can go to. Because we've seen it in the financial crash. After the financial crash, we all relied on OTAs so much that the OTAs got the upper hand on us. And now is the time to take that back and to actually create some sort of KPI that we're able to track, we're able to actually convert. And some people do it very, very well, and other people don't do it at all, which, they're quite happy to leave the big marketing to all the OTAs. And I think you're right. Over the next few weeks, we'll be touching base on a lot of different tools, targets, and how to define a strategy, which I think is something we're all very excited about. I know Susanne is very excited about it, for sure.
What I thought was really interesting about what you just said there, being spot on, and I think that hooking up what the revenue manager function is at hotel level, if that OTA reliance, you're looking to reduce it by 3 points, there's so many strong actions that the revenue manager can take and control and report on, which kind of enhances their influence with marketing, because it's quite a strong directive, isn't it? Let's reduce OTA business. Well, all the actions that sit behind that, but the revenue manager's got control of showing how that works. And I think seeing that more, I think is a good place for a revenue manager to be. Strong goal, strong tactic, then report on it. Perfect.
Yeah.
I think for 2021 as well, if people don't have, memberships or, a members deal going on their own websites, maybe that's something they can look at for sure. I know there's a lot of properties now, and as Susanne, I'm sure you'll be able to touch on this, that are actually starting to do this a lot more, almost like a Genius for a book direct. I've seen it pop up a lot over the last few weeks. People are trying to drive that, which is a good way of also driving that direct business and kind of taking it away from the OTAs, and actually creating a loyalty guest strategy, I think, should be built into a commercial plan for sure as part of the revenue for next year.
100%. I think, again, from that top overarching plan, if you don't have a strong loyalty program, if that is, if you're summarising it down into kind of 3 big actions, one's reduce OTAs and the second is loyalty, that can be huge for your business. You can feed your rate strategy, you can feed your demand. There's so many messages that you can use from a marketing perspective on really how to pull together a strong loyalty program. I would seriously advocate that for sure.
Yeah, but then, again, that works for some properties, but maybe for some others, the goal will actually to be, let's keep or increase those OTAs.
It's all different.
That's why it's really key to really understand the data and where you wanna go. Decide collectively, this is the goal, and it's the opposite in different properties. There's not one fit all. When everybody was like, oh, we need to go only fully direct. Yeah, in an ideal world, but in reality, is it the best for everybody? Not necessarily. So that's why it's really key that the data is understood and that you set the goals collectively.
Funny you say that, because I know that is all book direct.
Not necessarily. We're talking about real optimal channel mix stuff now. Yes, book direct if you're taking one part of the one program from us, but if you're doing digital, social, content and revenue, then you've got a full performance team there that can really amplify. And use your OTAs, but then make sure that you're really coming up the rear with a big, strong marketing machine that brings the guests back, enhances brand, etc., etc. So all the fun stuff.
Remember I was saying about property report, and we're on about direct. So I pulled someone's data for August. 22% of their bookings for August were actually made by phone, contact by phone to the property. I love the way your eyes just lit up there, Beavers. Like, that is crazy. The website was only 10%, but you know, that just signals for me that there's problems with the website. It's just not there. But you know, for me, looking at that as a commercial person from the outside, I'd be like, do you have enough staff there to be taking the calls? You know, and that's the first thing you do think of is, do you have enough staff?
Yeah,
that's what you need, and you need to be able to look at this from.
Do you want to invest in bots? Maybe then that's the right.
Well, yeah, exactly. You could almost say, let's invest in bots. I'd love that.
But if you think about that, the staycation boom, the domestic market, that to me is a real indicator of that. People have never been before. They're trying to squeeze in somewhere. All the questions that somebody phones up to ask should be answered on the website. The booking engine should be a clear process, and it never is. So, you know, what's the guest going to do if it doesn't tell you what's happening for families, kids' meals, breakfast? Think about who your audience are and make sure it's communicated through all the channels, your website being the most important.
Definitely one of the week topic in the next few weeks.
Sure.
Yes. So let's go into that, because obviously over the next few weeks we're coming to an end. And we're very keen on making sure that we kind of let everyone know what's going on for the next few weeks. So the next few weeks we're going to actually tell you how to clearly outline strategy, price demand, forecasting. What else am I forgetting? Technology, optimization. What is a strategy, first of all? Key focus as well on A/B testing, for sure. Did I miss something?
Yeah, there are a few stuff, but
distribution. Yeah, total revenue. How the whole total revenue picture with spas, food and beverage, events. You know, I think there's prime time now to start talking about planning for next year.
Yeah, and I think we're coming in with the right time, because everyone's financial year, especially some in the UK, are actually coming up soon. So mine in particular, so I'll be really busy with budgets and everything like that. So I'll be working on strategies. So no better time to have this discussion over the next few weeks. Make sure you tune in next week at 1:00. We will be kicking off with our foolproof strategy, everything. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much to Bea and Susanne for being with us. Remember, you can follow us on WHGT, and you can check us out on all social media on Revenue Hacks. Until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you.